Frooglesim videos are powered by Jetline Systems.
Hello YouTube, this is Frugal, and of course this is Microsoft Flight Simulator. This is the first in a series of videos I'm going to do, which are a beginner's guide to how to fly in a sim. Now, let's get the exceptions and the qualifications out of the way. I am not a qualified pilot. I have had flying lessons. I am in no way a qualified pilot. I am a very good flight simmer. So what I'm going to be showing you here is probably a mix of very realism type stuff and a mix of simmy type stuff, just so you know. What I've noticed looking around forums, Twitch and all that kind of stuff is there's a lot of people who are trying out the new sim who really don't know what they're doing and are really wondering how the hell they manage this thing. How do you land? How do you taxi? How do you fly? What should you be learning? What should you be focusing on? That's what I'm going to do. Now, if I were doing a traditional beginner's guide, what we would start with right now is how to taxi and how to start the aircraft. We're not going to do that. You're not interested in that. What you want to know is what should you be doing flying wise to get better. So I'm going to take off in this Cessna 172 Skyhawk in a minute and show you. Let's get the products out of the way. This is OG20 or Oscar Golf 20, which is a free airport from Orbex Direct. I highly recommend you download Orbex Direct and install OG20. It's a wonderful rural grass strip airport, as you can see. I'm also flying with the Thrustmaster TCA Sidestick Airbus Edition, which I previously did a sponsored review on. This, however, is not a sponsored video. I'm using this stick simply because I absolutely love it, and it's got everything you need if you're a beginner. You can go and get another stick, but the things you're going to need are obviously pitch control, roll control, and twist. The twist controls that rudder at the back of the aircraft, which I can't point out here, this thing. We'll get into what that does in a little while. Any joystick will do what it'll do, you know, that can do the twist and everything else, but if you have rudder pedals, as I do, you won't actually see me twisting this. I'm using rudder pedals on the floor, then you don't need twist. But anyway, I really like this joystick. It's a fantastic joystick. Highly recommend it. More information at the link in the show notes below. No, this is not sponsored, but yes, they did send me this for a sponsored series of videos, which you will see on this channel called Sponsored Videos. Anyway, let's jump right in and take off, and I'll show you what we're going to do. So, not going to mess about too much. What I am going to show you though is this. Microsoft Flight Simulator has a custom view system which you can configure. There is a video coming out later to show you how to configure it. Now, I seem to remember B. Yeah, press the B key. Let me explain what I just did there. By the way, air pressure controls the altimeter here. In fact, I've got a better view of that. Here, nice reflection. If you don't have air traffic control and can't figure out what the air pressure is, just press B and it resets that. So let me show you this. If I go and twist this around a bit and press B, it resets it back. So that's a good way of getting the air pressure, which means this is the actual altitude above sea level right now. Next thing I'm going to do though is pop in here. I'm going to hold down the middle mouse button to look down. I'm going to turn, whoa, I'm going to turn off that, and I'm going to turn off that, just because I like to be able to see all my switches on my instruments. We'll check all these, I don't like that. We're going to check all these switches here. Typically you'll turn a fuel pump on for takeoff, so we'll turn that on. Taxi lights, we are a GA aircraft. You can take off with the taxi lights and then turn the landing lights off. We'll leave it as it is. Peter Heat, we might as well turn it on just because it's good practice. Everything else is fantastic. So with that said, I do have some flaps out. We'll talk about what flaps do as well in a little while, probably in the landing lesson. What I'm going to do, increase power. Now, as you increase power, notice that there is a spinny thing on the front of the aircraft which keeps the pilot cool. Trust me, in a real aircraft, as soon as that stops spinning, most pilots start sweating. This is spinning to the left, which means as you increase power, the aircraft will want to turn to the left. That's where the twisty rudder comes in, or rudder pedals. So I'm going to apply pressure to the right rudder as we go down the runway here to keep it in that grass strip in the middle. Notice how when I increase the power, nothing happens. Notice how the aircraft's kind of breathing, but we're not moving. Reason for that is most aircraft have a parking brake, much like an e-brake in your car or a handbrake if you're from the England. Look down here with the right mouse button, there's the parking brake there, click it. Don't know if these work, no they don't. Now the brakes are off, which means if I increase power at this point, we'll start moving. So I'm just going to take off, climb up to about 3,000 feet, which if you do real flying lessons, is a pretty good altitude to do practicey stuff. Just adjusting the rudder pedals. If I were using a twist on the joystick, I'll be adjusting that twist right now, just to keep us in the grass strip in the middle. We have flaps out to let us take off at a slower speed. Reason being, the large green tree things directly in front of me. Up we go. Gently rotate. Notice how I didn't just yank the nose up into the sky. and we'll just climb on out. Once we get about 400 feet above the runway, we'll turn probably to the left. Now remember that runway is about 400 feet above sea level. We're currently at 600 feet, coming up on 700 feet. Now we have climbed out. So what I can do, I've got a couple of buttons here which are bound to my flaps. I'm going to raise my flaps. That lets me gain a bit more speed. We're going to set the aircraft to climb at about 75 knots. There's coming up on 400 feet, and I'm going to turn to the left so that we're heading precisely north. And there's a reason for that as well in a second. You'll learn all about what that reasoning is. So we're actually picking up too much speed. I want to climb at about 70 knots. See that there? There. And there's north. So we're heading north now, climbing at about 70 knots, which is a good rate of climb for a Cessna. And we will just keep on climbing. Notice as that speed increases, all I'm going to do is pull gently back on the stick to bring the speed down. So the pitch of the aircraft, how much up or down it's pointing, is actually controlling my airspeed. That's very important. Most newcomers, when they come to flying, think power controls your airspeed. Well, it does, but pitch is a better control of it, to be honest. Alright, we're at 1,300 feet. We're just going to climb on out here, all the way out, as I said, to about 3,000. Beautiful scenery, huh? Again, Orbex, Oscar Golf 20. Free, download it, it's awesome. Now notice as I fly here, the aircraft wants to turn. It's very hard to keep it going in a straight line. That's normal. In fact, depending on where you fly, like when I first moved here to Florida and I went flying, it scared the crap out of me. You have so much heat and thermals in Florida. The air, even though it feels like a nice calm day, moves a great deal. And the aircraft is actually very, very bumpy in flight as it flies over and in and out of those thermals. You need to be monitoring what you're doing. You'll need to be adjusting the controls all the time as you're flying. Unless you're using autopilot, but where's the fun in that? So 1,900 feet. Coming up on 2,000 feet now. A little bit slow, so just going to release the pressure on the joystick here. And continue our climb up to about 3,000 feet. Now at this stage, incidentally, what I could also do is look on down here and turn the fuel pump off. We've taken off nice and safely. We don't need that running anymore. Notice I turned again. We'll turn back, head towards the north. Reason we typically, not always, but typically in an aircraft run the fuel pumps on landing and takeoff is just in case something goes wrong. Basically, it's kind of a backup system to make sure fuel is flowing to the engine. 2,400 feet, 70 knots, heading exactly north, which is exactly what we want. Just take another peek out the window. Look at that. I love this sim. Now, a lot of people have been actually dissing this sim, saying it's not very realistic, the aircraft are not very realistic. Well, no, they're stock aircraft. They're the ones that come with the sim. You're going to find over the years we get a plethora of add-on aircraft which add immense realism to everything you do. It's a platform. It's a simulation platform that's going to be with us for at least the next 10 years. And we're waiting for all the third-party developers to start putting aircraft into it. And there are a lot of third-party developers we've had prior to this thing releasing. Those of you who are new to simulation, companies like A2A, PNDG, Aorus, and so on, who are currently working on add-on aircraft, which will add a lot more variety into your simming and a lot more challenge as well. Okay, 2,900 feet. Let's talk about something lovely called trim. See that big wheel there? You see it in the middle of the screen? That's called a trim wheel. Now typically, see I'm holding the joystick back here. If I relaxed my pressure, I'm going to pull back on the power a little bit here as well. Now we're up to 3,000 feet. And I'm going to try to get us level. In fact, I'm going to pause it and show you some stuff. So we're currently paused. It's called active pause. So although you can still hear stuff and things are still moving, you're not actually moving. Let's look at instruments down here. This is your vertical speed, okay, or VSI. It is not a VVI. There's two types of these things, VSI and VVI. VVIs are instantaneous, which means that as soon as the aircraft changes its attitude and what it's doing in the air, this thing will reflect that change. VSIs don't. So they actually play catch up. So anything that I do with the power or the stick here, it's going to take a few seconds for this thing to update. So don't chase this needle. But what you're looking to get is this needle level here at 0. We're at 3,000 feet. And this is the first thing that you really should be practicing if you really want to learn how to fly in an aircraft as well as a simulator, is flying straight and level. So we're not currently straight either, we wandered off course. So we're going to get the aircraft back towards north, and we're going to get this thing leveled off at 3000. Let me show you how we do that. So we'll unpause it, I'm going to turn slightly to the right. You can see we're climbing. Now don't chase the needle, just push down a little bit or push forward a little bit, let that needle come down and see what happens. Now what I'm finding right now is to keep this at 3000, I'm actually applying a tiny bit of pressure, forward pressure, to the joystick. There is that trim wheel is designed to release that pressure. So you basically adjust the trim wheel so you can let go of the joystick. If I let go of this joystick right now, let me show you. That's almost level. If I let go, notice how the nose is coming up? So I'm applying that forward pressure. So I have a couple of buttons, trim nose down, trim nose up, assigned here. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to press and hold, trim nose down, and see what happens. So you press, release, let go. Now, notice we're going down. As we go down, notice the speed will come up. As we get more airflow over the wings, that will create lift. This needle will change, there it goes, and we'll start to come back up again. That's why you can't chase the needle. You need to adjust and watch, adjust and watch, adjust and watch. Practice trimming your aircraft, practice getting it straight and level. You will always get some variation around the required altitude, in my case 3000 feet. That's normal, don't worry about it. But just get comfortable with the aircraft flying straight and level, as I'm currently doing. There, we're pretty much trimmed. See, I'm letting go. Notice this needle is not really wavering too much. We're just under 3000 feet. I can probably increase that. We are turning to the right. You do have rudder trim on this aircraft as well, which you can use to stop the turn. I'm not going to worry about that today. Let's get it back onto the north. There. And I'm going to turn on active pause again. Boink. And we're going to pop on outside. Oh, gosh, that's loud. Okay, outside. Press and hold the right mouse button. You can spin the camera around. I want to show you a couple of things on this aircraft. All aircraft have these things, but they're important to know. A lot of questions I see are, how do you fly? What do you do? How do you manage everything? There are basically, what is it, 3 axes? No, I'm not even going to get into that, but basically let me talk about how it flies. So you have an engine on the front, okay, which in this case is pulling the aircraft, but it's creating thrust from the tail forwards. So that's how we're moving forwards. On the wings, here, now when I move the joystick, although we're paused, the camera will update. So if I roll left here, you see the camera's moving, but what you also saw here is on the edge of the wing, this one went down, this one went up. If I press to the right, this one goes down, this one goes up. Those are called ailerons. They are how the aircraft rolls or spins around that central axis, okay? That's how you turn. There's more to it than that, but that's basically how you turn. If you push left, that left aileron goes up, the right aileron goes down, the wind basically hits this, pushes the wing downwards, you'll start turning, okay? On the back, whoa, around here. This big flappy thing here, it's not a flap, is an elevator. An elevator, as the name implies, lets you go up and down, and again, the camera's gonna move, but the aircraft's not. So if I pull back, that elevator tips up, which means the wind is gonna hit it, it's going to push it, and the aircraft is going to tip upwards. That's how we climb. If I push down, the reverse happens. The wind hits that elevator that's depressed now, tips the aircraft down. That's how we descend. In fact, it's not, but we'll get into that when we get into the landing lesson. What it will do is it will change the pitch of the aircraft. But an aircraft can fly at that pitch and not climb. It can actually fly at that pitch and descend, which is funky. We'll get into that in a bit as well. Notice there's a little indicator down here called flaps. What are flaps and why do you use them? Well, flaps are these. So these are the ailerons, these are the flaps. What a flap does is when you drop the flaps, so you lower them, you can see a little seam there, actually, see it? When you drop the flaps, it increases the curvature of the wing. Now you notice the wing has a curved shape to it anyway. And it's pretty much flat underneath and it's curved on top. What happens is wind hits this wing, it gets disrupted and kind of curls over the top here like this, creating a low pressure area, and it just passes as normal straight underneath, which is a higher pressure area. That high pressure air underneath and the low pressure on top causes lift. Now lift does not just mean up and down. We'll get onto that in a minute as well. But lift basically means that the aircraft will be pulled in the direction of the lift, so up in this case. Okay? What flaps do are they increase the curvature of that wing. So they make it even more bendy, which means you get even more lift. You also get more drag, which slows you down. But so flaps are used to generate more lift, add more drag, and basically let you fly and remain airborne at slower speeds. Very, very useful when landing. Let's drop back in the cockpit. Let's look at these instruments. Here's your speedometer, such as it is. Here, this white bar, that's your flap speeds. Okay, you can lower the flaps once you hit here, and there are various stages of flaps which vary based on the aircraft you're flying. I think there are 3 or 4 stages, maybe 3 stages in a 172 like this. So each press of that flaps button will lower the flaps 1 stage. Flaps lever is down here, you see, 1, 2, 3. You just move that lever down if you want to do everything in the cockpit. So once you get into that white bar, you can drop the flaps. It's going to generate lift. The aircraft's going to want to go up, but it's also going to slow you down because of the increased drag. We'll get onto that in a minute. Anyway, lots of stuff I just covered there. Let's put some of that stuff into practice. So I'm going to unpause. Aircraft is still currently trimmed. You can see the VSI is coming back up. We're a little bit under altitude, but that's fine. Now, I said to you that if I pull back on the stick, we'll climb. In this case, right now, we will. We have enough airspeed for that. But that's not always the case. More to the point, increasing power will climb. So look, I'm flying straight and level-ish. If I whack the power up, I'm not going to press any other controls. Notice the speed is coming up, which is increasing the airflow over the wing. That airflow then is generating lift. Notice we're now going up. The aircraft isn't necessarily pointing up, but we are going up. Okay? Similarly, if I pull the power off, speed is dropping like a rock. So are we, because there's less airflow over the wings. So practice first of all flying straight and level. Once you've got the hang of straight and level, get a feel for what adjusting the power on the aircraft does. And that's kind of important because when we talk about landing, let me get back up to 3,000 feet here. And I've turned massively. Look, I was heading north, now I'm not. Let's turn back to the north here. When we talk about landing, obviously we don't want the aircraft to come down nose first. We don't want to just plow the propeller straight into the runway. Ideally, we want the wheels underneath the aircraft to touch the runway. So that's where you adjust the attitude, not altitude, attitude of the aircraft. So how it's pitched and how it's rolled to keep it level-ish, and then you adjust power to descend. So look, here we are at 3,000 feet. What I can do is I can reduce that power now. So power's reduced, speed's coming down. I can pull back on the stick a little bit just to keep the nose level. I can see the nose level based on the artificial horizon here. And look, we're descending. Hello, landing. That's a key to landing, so get used to that as well. Try to adjust your rates of descent. So currently we're at 400 feet per minute rate of descent. It's actually reducing, so we'll reduce the power a bit more. And you'll find that the more you reduce the power, the more you increase the rate of descent if you keep the attitude of the aircraft fixed. See, now we're down to 500 feet per minute and increasing. Speed's coming down, rate of descent's coming down. So that's key. As you're coming into land, don't be yanking and banking and tilting and pitching the aircraft all over the place. Just keep a nice, solid, it's called a stable attitude, and adjust your power. Look, we're at 700 feet per minute right now. That's too fast to land, so we'll put the power back in. Keep the artificial horizon where it currently is. Look, rate of descent now is coming up to 600 feet per minute, 500 feet per minute, 400 feet per minute. Pretty cool, huh? So what happens if you increase power but keep the artificial horizon level? Let's find out. So full power. Going to keep the aircraft leveled. So keeping my artificial horizon here pointing where it is. The inverse basically, but not as dramatic. So we're starting to climb. Because we have more speed, there's more airflow over the wing, we'll start to climb. If we consistently keep the aircraft level, we'll pick up even more speed and we'll climb even more. Get used to that. So practice climbing and descending just with the power. Okay? Next thing we're going to look at, this is cool. If we go down here, at your, it's called an HSI, or a, yeah, is this an, what are you going to call me? Attitude indicator, could be called an HSI in some aircraft. This basically is your artificial horizon, okay? And you'll see some markings in here. Let me zoom in. These are degrees. 5, 10 degrees, 15 degrees, 20 degrees pitch up, 5, 10, 15, 20 degrees pitch down. Now at the top here, these are turn indicators. This is 30 degrees of bank, also known as a standard rate turn. This is 60 degrees of bank. Now, when you turn, when you just roll the aircraft over, a couple of things are going to happen. We spoke about the wing generating lift, okay? Because the wing is generating lift when you're level, it will make you go up. If you turn the aircraft, that lift is going to pull you sideways. That's how you're turning, right? But similarly, you've reduced the amount of lift, making you go upwards. We need to counter that. So let me unpause this and I'll show you. So I'm going to put in a standard rate 30-degree turn to the left. Just going to increase the power here. I'm going to keep us nice and level. There we go. I'm going to pitch this over 30 degrees to the left. Typically you would look left and make sure you're not going to collide with another aircraft. If you're not. Now I pulled the nose up, force of habit. I'm going to try not to now. I'm just going to hold this at 30 degrees left. Look at the VSI. We are going downwards. We can counter that by pulling back on the stick. That is now increasing G on the pilot. But we are now in a standard rate level turn-ish. This is very, very, very important to practice. Get on a heading. This is why I chose north. Get on a heading like north. Put it in a standard rate 30-degree turn, maybe to the left, maybe to the right, and try to hold the same altitude all the way through the turn. So make sure that you're not increasing over 30 degrees as I just did. Make sure this isn't really going up or down, and turn a full 360 degrees back round to north again. Coming up on north now. You'll need to apply a little back pressure to the stick to do that. There we go. Now, the eagle-eyed amongst you, or the experienced pilots, will notice something. Look where my nose is pointing. So the compass here is pointing just to the left, just to the right of this peak. Watch happens. Watch what happens when I roll. It doesn't turn straight away, does it? You notice that? In fact, in a more realistic aircraft, you'll get something called adverse yaw, where the nose will actually go that way. It'll go to the right before you even start turning. We counter that with the rudder. And if some of you are wondering what the rudder's for, we'll explain it right now. So that field, this compass, roll, 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 roll. You see it there. It actually went a little bit to the right before it went a little bit to the left. Now, as I turn, notice down here this little ball. It's called a slip ball. As I turn, watch that ball. Let me move the mouse out of the way. See it bouncing around? If you were in the aircraft and you roll an aircraft like that, you'd actually get flung a little bit to the side. Lateral G. So what we do with the rudder is called stepping on the ball. So as that ball comes off center, that little ball there, as it comes off center, you would twist the joystick or step on the rudder pedal in the direction that the ball went. So let's turn to the left, and I'm going to step on the ball now with my rudder pedals on the floor. A little bit too much. That is a much more realistic turn. It's called a coordinated turn. If you were flying, you wouldn't be getting flung all over the cockpit right now. Practice that. Practice keeping that ball centered in a level 30-degree turn. Like so. I'm now heading south. If you want to get really smart with it and you think you've mastered a 30-degree standard rate turn, try 60 degrees, which are these white lines on the inside here. So we get this level. I'm going to roll, I'm going to step on the ball, so a little bit of right rudder, the nose isn't going to the left now, it's going to the right. Roll, 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 roll. Notice that I'm climbing because I've increased the back pressure already, force of habit. There's my 60 degrees. Now you're going to need a lot of pressure, a lot of back pressure to hold that nose up. And you're going to need a lot more rudder to step on the ball. Eventually, there we go. Now we're starting to bring the altitude or VSI back up. Scary stuff. Want to puke? Blech. Practice that. So practice standard rate turns. Practice 60-degree, they're called steep turns. Practice straight and level. Practice controlling the VSI, so you're descending at a set speed that you want. So for 500 feet per minute. Typically you're going to descend to a runway at 500 feet per minute and then flare, which is where at the last minute you do that, and then land. So practice all of that and practice climbing. You can then start stringing those things together. How do I do a climbing turn? So look, we're under 3,000. So I'm going to increase my power here. I could trim this aircraft, by the way, to climb. So let's say I want a 500 feet per minute climb here. I can apply trim to get us to 500 feet per minute. Now you can practice turning. So we can do a 500 foot per minute climbing turn round to the south. A little bit more than 500 feet, but you get the idea. There we go. Practice all that stuff. These are essential skills, particularly when it comes into landing, which we will cover in the next video. For now, that's the intro, that's the beginning of the beginner's guide to how to fly a simulated aircraft in Microsoft Flight Simulator. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch this. As always, my name is Frugal. Until next time, I shall see you all very soon.